Ugh. I never know how to dress in here.
Thank you, everyone, for showing up. We're going to be just a few minutes delayed. We're waiting for the chairman to come. Thanks.
Good evening. I'd like to call this meeting of the Madeira Beach Planning Commission to order. And if we could first have the roll call from Gwen.
Sure. One moment. Mary Ann Hearn, she'll be absent tonight, and I guess the chair, maybe something came up. He can't make it tonight. Commissioner Rappa,
Present.
Second Vice Chair Wyckoff,
Present.
Commissioner Preston,
Present.
First Vice Chair Belaski.
Present.
Thank you.
All right, thank you, Gwen. Approval of the minutes from the August 14th meeting, please. I'd like to ask my commissioners, is there any input they would like to have? If not, we'll just have a motion to approve.
I move we accept the minutes as presented.
I'll second. All right. Could we have a roll call vote, Gwen?
Yes. Commissioner Preston,
Yes.
Second Vice Chair Wyckoff,
Yes.
Commissioner Rappa,
Yes.
First Vice Chair Belaski.
Yes.
Thank you.
Perfect. Now we're going to move on to new business, and we're going to have a presentation, and it will be behind us. So I'm going to move my seat to sit down there to see Jerry's presentation instead of sitting up here and getting, a stiff neck.
And while you're readjusting, just wanted to mention that we had the special magistrate hearing today on the special exception that you guys heard at your last meeting, and he approved it with your condition. Okay, so let me address the crowd first. I'm glad you're all here. It's a nice turnout. So we're getting ready to embark upon impact fees here in Madeira Beach. Too dark. I wish I had a flashlight. And what we've done is we've talked to management and staff about what they see as the needs, putting together the inventories of what we have, and now it's an opportunity for the Planning Commission has commented, the Board of Commissioners will ultimately decide. In the meantime, we want to hear from the community. Have we identified everything? Are there things that we need to do? Are there things that you don't want to do? You know, it's very, very open. So I'm going to make a brief presentation to sort of bring you up to speed. The Planning Commission and most of the Board of Commissioners have seen these. And now we want to open it up for the community. With your input, then we'll go forward and develop a plan for moving forward on a study for the impact fees going into next year. So let me go ahead and give the brief presentation. And then what we'd ask you to do, because we want to record your comments, come up to the microphone. You'll have at least 3 minutes to talk if you need that much to identify things. At the very end of this presentation, I'm going to go over basically 6 areas in which the impact fees might be appropriate, and then get your ideas, and we'll record them then and can distill it from the recording, and we'll have the body of information we need, hopefully, to do the report. So thank you for coming. So when development happens, there are benefits and losses, and sometimes those are captured and sometimes they're not, and impact fees are one of the better ways to capture those. If the benefit is received and no payment is made, to maintain the quality of life that we're looking at maintaining, we need resources, and those resources will either come from the development who is creating the need, expanding the service provision, or from the community at large. And generally when they come from the community at large, that's in the form of ad valorem taxes for the general fund. And so we quantify quality of life with a level of service standards, and those standards are generally in the comprehensive plan. You have here at the city an elevated quality of life, but it's not very well quantified in the comprehensive plan, and I'll show you a little bit of that later. I'm not exactly sure why that is, but I think that there is a lack of data analysis update in the current comprehensive plan since the late to mid-90s. And so hopefully we will identify that. So these are the elements in the current comprehensive plan. These are areas where requirements are provided for the guide to development in the community over time. And we'll go through each of these in terms of what's currently there with regard to level of service. So in the future land use element, it talks about necessary, the public facilities that are necessary to support the levels of service need to be in place concurrent with the impacts of new development and redevelopment. We want to ensure that that is in place so it doesn't reduce that level of service, that quality of life that we've come to expect. And it's for both residential and commercial development. The comprehensive plan doesn't talk about industrial development, though you do have some sort of marine-oriented industries. That's something that we'll address as we go through revisions to the comprehensive plan. And the revisions to the comprehensive plan will have to be made to identify better levels of service so that we have a basis on which to establish impact fees as we grow. So the first goal in the transportation element talks about operational levels of service and the roads in the city, which it's not clear if that includes all of the streets. Roads is usually a term of art, and those involve county roads. And the current impact fees that are being collected are only for the county and basically are only applicable to the two county roads that run through the Causeway and Gulf Boulevard. But we're required to assess those fees that the county has leveled and enforce the transportation impact fee regulations that they've adopted. So impact fees are land development, land use regulations. They're not taxes. The county charges the mobility fee, and like I said, the Causeway and the other state road. And there are still additional mobility considerations for Madeira Beach. In other words, the streets, the community mobility challenges, that's for, say, aging population. And then there's a thing called the last mile. And that in transportation, transportation and transit is basically the last mile from whatever transit you might utilize to get to your home. So a bus stop might be on Gulf Boulevard, but that doesn't get you all the way out to, the further extents of the island. So these are the current requirements for levels of service that are in the infrastructure element of the comprehensive plan. Again, you'll see a mantra running throughout the plan that development permits won't be issued until it's determined that the facilities are adequate to support the level of service. And these are your sanitary sewer, and sanitary sewer is provided by Pinellas County. Solid waste, you do solid waste yourself, that's why that's underlined. Potable water, again, is Pinellas County. And you can see that there's a standard reduction in gallons per day as a goal in time from 2015 to 2025, a 5-gallon reduction. My personal anticipation is that that requirement will probably get more stringent by 2025. I think Pinellas County wasn't considering the impacts that you're receiving currently from growth and also from sea level rise. So stormwater, this is the adopted level of service for drainage, and basically this is a development regulation that doesn't really provide a level of service. This is just a requirement that site plans have to calculate that the 10-year frequency 60-minute storm event is held on the property, the site of the development. So this isn't really a level of service for drainage. As you can see from place to place on the island, you have flooding, and that's something that we'll need to be looking at as we go forward. Recreation and open space. The current recreation and open space level of service standard is based on acreage, and it's adopted at 5 acres per 1,000 residents. This is new since the 90s. Back in the 90s, and I've handed out to all of the planning commissioners, The previous standards were much more granular. They had a certain requirement of number of basketball courts, number of tennis courts. Here it's just 5 acres per 1,000 residents, so that doesn't really address visitors and tourists who might be utilizing your park facilities, and your park facilities include the beaches, so you know they are. So this is another level that we're going to want to address, probably in a more granular way like it was before. I don't know why it was changed. I anticipate that the reason was because the leadership at the time did not want to have to require of development to provide any additional services, and so they set the standard at what they could maintain. And then also, you have these requirements that you're going to provide that level of service in an efficient manner economically. This is then speaking to the idea that impact fees help with that economically efficient manner of providing additional services. Capital improvements, again, you have to keep the level of services and they have to be able to be met by your projected fiscal resources. And any project that the city proposes to build or that the county would build or the state for any reason still has to meet that existing level of service or bring up the facility to that adopted level of service. And then these are the various levels of service that are outlined in policy 1.5.4. So for roads, again, that's a county standard, level of service D, which is, you know, it's a grade like A, B, C, D, E, F. A D is not the greatest grade, so if you're looking to improve that, the county can work with you in that regard as well. Sanitary sewer, 111 gallons per capita per day. Solid waste level of service is, it's 7.1 overall, but 4.9 of non-recyclable waste. That's your current comprehensive plan standard. And then the first inch of runoff is required to be held from the 10-year frequency 60-minute event with regard to drainage. Your level of services for adopted potable water were 137 gallons per capita per day in 2005, and again moving toward 130 by 2025. You have a coastal management level of service, which doesn't make a whole lot of sense actually, but it's there. And then the level of standard, or level of service standard for parkland is 5 acres per 1,000 people. So what is an impact fee? It's a charge. It's a regulatory charge. New development, and in the case of Madeira Beach, redevelopment. And it is to offset the expansion and construction of government facilities and services necessary to benefit new development. So that's how we maintain the quality of life through maintaining that level of service standard. Infrastructure capacity is essential to accommodate new growth. Impact fees help to minimize externalities, all the things that off-site impacts of new development or redevelopment. And then they help to integrate comprehensive planning with economic development and budget and revenue strategies. And so they are accounted for separately. They're in a separate account, collected and kept separate from the general fund, and spent only to improve and maintain that level of service. So these are sort of the burdens that you have on the right. On the left-hand side is the full cost of keeping the quality of life that we have, and on the right-hand side are the way that that can be done through bond proceeds, grant money, dedicated revenues, generally ad valorem taxes and other fees, and then the impact fee. The proportions here are just rough. They don't expect the impact fee to be the big thing. It's just one aspect of development revenue that currently isn't being captured by the city. So these are the 6 areas that we have broken out what the proportionate share development fees or impact fees are supposed to be looking at. These are the public improvements that we want to try and capture. Community policing, fire and emergency response, municipal facilities like the one we're in, parks and recreation facilities, the beach accesses and the beach itself, mobility, and then other. That's kind of a catch-all for anything that we can't really put a name on. And that's sort of how the state looks at the auditing of the money as well. They have an other provision. So these are some of the things that have been developed through the process, working with the administration, staff, the Planning Commission, and the Commission of City Commissioners, Board of City Commissioners. So you want to continue the relationship with the Pinellas County Sheriff's Office, but there is an idea of having potentially a small Madeira Beach Police Department also. We want to improve the public facility improvements, eyes on public spaces, connectivity, wayfinding. So this area that surrounds the City Hall is a very large area, and it could use better connectivity. Again, these are ideas that have come forward. They're not my ideas. Those will come a lot later. Strict code enforcement to maintain the quality of life. Ordinance upgrades. Currently, the ordinance are kind of disjointed. Adequate paid parking and contractor service parking enforcement. So the potential of people getting away with using paid parking and not paying, and the idea that contractors and service providers are parking in the right-of-way or on the side of the road, maybe too close to an intersection. We need to make sure that, we maintain safety. Not all of these things necessarily equate to a potential for impact fees, but at this point, we're looking broadly for all kinds of ideas so that we can capture as much as possible. Control of pets on the beaches and other public areas, and require that service animals the owner has the permit in possession, and enforcing that. The idea of a 25-mile-an-hour speed limit within the city limits, speed limit enforcement of the current speed limits. Stormwater facilities, debris deposition enforcement, so when lawn maintenance people are cutting the yards and the lawn clippings are going out into the street, or the maintenance people are blowing them out into the street, then they go to the storm drains and they clog up the storm drains, so that becomes a problem. The same thing with regard to the waterways. If they're blowing clippings or trimmings off into the water, that's a problem with water quality. So the next one then was fire and emergency response. Right now, growth generates a need for additional response team capacity, and the age demographics should be monitored to assure that our response capabilities and capacity are responsive to our demographics. Looking for additional stuff here. This is all right now, and I've got a meeting with one of the chiefs tomorrow to see if I've captured everything that they have in mind. Municipal facilities. So ideas about improvement to the parking areas west of Gulf Boulevard, parking garage at the city parking lot at 130th, public works facilities within the city limits. Currently, we have facilities out in Pinellas County, and the idea would be to bring all of those facilities and the equipment that they house onto the city itself. A concert venue or covenant area in the ROC Park area over here by City Hall. A fiscal impact analysis for parking garages. So a fiscal impact analysis basically looks at what the cost of something's going to be, what the time for return on investment will be, and if that's going to be viable in a certain time horizon. Feasibility study for a parking structure at Johns Pass Village, and public-private options for redevelopment in areas like the Carter Plaza. With regard to parks and recreation facilities, boardwalk, dune walkover improvements at the public beach accesses, improved dune vegetation, plantings from John Pass northward to the city limits, expanded use of ROC Park, landscape and minor improvements at the pocket parks, collaborative opportunities with other beach communities, increase the utilization of our recreational facilities, and advertise and encourage use, potential for indoor athletic facilities, and reevaluate the library for expansion of indoor event space and better utilization of that property. Then with regard to mobility, a shuttle service or trolley service that's exclusive to Madeira Beach, and potentially doing a beta or a demo on that to see if there's a demand for it, if people will use it. Increase safety at the pedestrian crosswalks, educating people on how to use the signals, or potentially not having to push a button at all, something more automatic. Looking at, as the town center redevelops, making it a true pedestrian area and a hotspot, sort of the center of town. City of Madeira Beach kiosk office at Johns Pass Village for visitors, and painted pedestrian crosswalk lines and signs indicating stop for pedestrians at Gulf Boulevard and 140th Avenue. Then with regard to the catch-alls, Johns Pass Village expansion, maybe a district, potential redevelopment of Pelican Lane, continue the relationship with Duke Energy for undergrounding or perhaps subaqueous conversion of the utilities, cooperation with Pinellas County on sewage and potable water systems, and Public Works for stormwater drainage maintenance, beach monitoring, enhanced marina monitoring and enforcement, and collaboration with other beach communities. So that's all that I've got to present, and now we'd like to hear from you guys. The planning commissioners can go ahead and go back to the dais, and we can turn the chair over to the chair. And Mr. Chair, if you want to discuss this among the board first before you open it up to public comment, that's fine with me, or you can open it up to public comment and then discuss among yourselves, or both, however you want to do it. We just want to make sure that everyone from the public who speaks comes up to the microphone so we can get it on the record.
Thank you, Jerry, for that one very informative presentation. What is the will of my fellow commissioners? Are there aspects of the presentation that you would like to discuss amongst ourselves prior to having the public speak? I'm open to any suggestions that you have.
I would like to see what the public has to say. I would like to see what the public has to say.
Okay. Okay, so why don't we go that route? Thank you, commissioners. Okay, we'd like to open this up for the public to speak, and we welcome your comments. Let's start out with 3 minutes a person, similar to what City Commission does. And when you come up to the microphone, if you could please state your name and address for the record.
And through the chair, there are sign-up sheets in the back. If you
there were?
If you would sign in, either, if you didn't already before you leave, we'd appreciate it.
Okay, we can just come up, first person to speak, and feel free to walk up to the microphone.
Marcia Zuckelman, 845 Bay Point Drive. I don't know if you touched on this because I came in a little bit late, but I'm curious to know if the schedule of fees from the city for permitting, if they're published anywhere, and if they have anything to do with the comprehensive plan, as far as what fees are for permitting and for building, if they have adverse reactions for future development.
So the schedule of fees is, I think, adopted by resolution, and it is published, and it should be available.
Okay, I've tried to find it. I have found every city pretty much on the beach, but I've never found Madeira's. So if it is, I would like to know where to find it. But I have not found it, any type of schedule of fee as to what it is. Also, when you raise impact fees, how is it going to adversely affect future realtors when they're coming to remodel, when builders are coming to build, when new people are coming to demolish and build again? Is that going to affect future building as well? And that's something to consider. But regardless of that, I'd also like to know where the schedule of fees are, and if it has anything to do with the comprehensive plan.
The two really aren't related. I mean, the comprehensive plan has general language about capturing the cost of doing business, and that's what the permitting fees are for. And the schedule of fees should be available. You should be able to come in here and get it if it's not available online. But
Should it be available online?
it should be,
Yes.
but that's sort of, I'll make a note of that.
Okay. That's it. Thank you.
With regard to impact fees and adverse effects, there's a lot of perception that there are adverse effects, but the data and analysis basically shows that communities that charge impact fees and charge them reasonably, which you have to do by state law, generally maintain their quality of life at a better way than other communities that don't. And development basically goes to places that have a high quality of life. And Madeira Beach.
I agree with
right
that.
now- Madeira Beach
The only
is right
thing
now
is that some
experiencing.
builders, small, large builders also, I don't know how it's handled, I guess it's in general, they don't pay impact fees for schools, roads, or public places. Am I correct? Only the builder, the buyer who's going to buy from that builder, correct? So the
Well,
actual builder isn't paying
The
them.
builders generally pass them through to the ultimate purchaser, yes.
Okay, so I guess it doesn't matter to the builders then.
They often oppose them. I mean, the building industry doesn't like anything that puts an additional burden on them. But they generally accept them. And in a place like Madeira Beach, which is primarily built out, what you're seeing is redevelopment. And so it's not like green land impact fees, which can be very high with regard to transportation and schools. School impact fees are handled by the school board. The city obviously collects them, but they don't really have any say-so over how much they are.
When I also look for the schedule of fees, is there somewhere that says how the schedule of fees is applied within the city?
Well, it's applied uniformly. It'll say, what the fee calculus is, what per square foot or whatever it is in terms of building
Right, but
permits.
there's fees that are being charged that are just not even listed as a schedule of fees, as if you were to go to the city of Pinellas and they multiply that factor to that factor. That's kind of standard.
Yeah, that's-
There's additional fees.
That's how the schedule of fees is laid out.
Right, but there's additional fees in the city that are being charged.
They're in the schedule of fees if they are.
Okay, so if they're not in the schedule of fees, they can't be charged.
There's no fee.
Okay, so if they're not in the schedule of fees, other charges, then they can't be charged or shouldn't be charged.
There's no fee.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. I'd like to just ask Mr. Murphy a question kind of relating to what was just asked. Do impact fees vary? Like, let's say, are our impact fees different in Madeira than Treasure Islands, than St. Pete Beach? All of us who kind of live on this beach area, are we all charging kind of the same amount?
So currently, you're not charging any impact fees locally. The
Okay.
only impact fees that you have are for schools, for roads, and for water and sewer.
That's county.
And those are all Pinellas County or the school board.
Okay. Okay, so they'd be the same in any of the places. I got you on that. Okay. Thank you. Okay, someone else can come to speak?
Joe Jorgensen, 13021 Bocasieg Avenue. I have a couple of questions. Obviously, in 2018, the state dictated in terms of concurrency what these public funds could be for, and that was basically solid waste, sanitary, potable water, and drainage. Now, my understanding is the waterfront communities can add things to that, which is what you're talking about tonight, with that whole long list of all these things that everybody wants. I look at that list and say, all right, you've got this huge list of things, and that impact fee has to be caused by the impact of that development on the community. Once you take out the sanitary, the solid waste, the potable water, and the drainage, which the county gets, I don't understand how much you can charge these developers over and above that to do this big windfall of projects you want to do. I mean, we're talking about hundreds of millions of dollars, what's on that list. And this is a small community, there's 4,000 people here.
Yeah, I think hundreds of millions of dollars is probably not going to be the case.
Not even close, right. So it's like, I don't want everybody to get
It's not
the,
a windfall either. I mean, the fees have to be directly supporting what the need is that's generated by the development.
by the
It's a
development.
dual rational nexus requirement, which is
Right.
a legal term.
That is correct. And when you look at all these projects that we're talking about tonight, there's not much money for them. I don't want the community, particularly the people that are here, to get the feeling that this is going to be this windfall, that they're going to come in and all of a sudden we're going to have parks and all kinds of neat things going on and parking garages and everything else. And when you looked at that chart, you had impact fees at about 30% of what was needed. And let's face it, that's not, we're not, you haven't, I don't think you've even determined what they are yet. But,
Right now, we're trying to determine if we want them, and if we do, what we want them for.
well, yeah, I don't understand, yeah. I mean, the county's going to get most of it,
County won't get any of your impact.
and we'll get a little piece of it.
The county won't get any of your impact fees.
Well, the county, there is an impact fee that goes to the county, correct?
County impact fees go to the county. Roads, sanitary sewer, and potable water.
Solid waste and
Schools
potable
goes to
water
the school
drainage.
board.
Right. So I don't want anybody to think that this is going to be a huge amount of money.
Well, I've been pretty consistent throughout the process to say that this is not a windfall and it's not a panacea for any economic needs. All it is capturing a portion of the cost of maintaining your quality of life from the development community that's not contributing it at this point.
That's the total impact caused by that development.
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
And if, I would just like to add, when we were tasked to looking at this, as a planning commission, one of our roles is to have visionary thinking and to get impact from the citizens. How do we want our community to be? How do we want it to look? And we, as a commission, did not look at any fiscal amounts in any of this at this time. It was just looking at Madeira Beach and what we love about it and what we want to continue in Madeira Beach. And I think everybody who's on a commission needs to have thoughts of down the road to keep us moving along how we want to be.
If you look at infrastructure on a national basis, all of the reports come out.
Oh.
Grade D, we're 50 years behind because we haven't maintained it over
Right.
time. The city doesn't have to be in that same situation.
Absolutely. And even in the paper, Tampa's in huge trouble with capital improvements, and we need to look at all of these things.
Hi, everybody. Mike Krajic, 15316 Gulf Boulevard. As we're talking about what we see in our future, I recently read in the newspapers that somebody voted away the height restriction on the new construction. So now how is that going to impact us as citizens when we're a small beach community town and we're going to end up a concrete city? Right now we have the brand new building that was just built, a hotel up there. It was restricted to the height. We spent a lot of money in court hearings to keep that down to a certain level. And now all of a sudden I'm reading that we just lifted this. So does that mean the new condominiums, the 4 new buildings that are going, can go wherever they want?
I'll
No.
let Jerry reply, I think.
And how does that impact our impact fees
So
that we're going to end up
anything-
paying for while hotel guests are in town?
Anything that's higher in height than what's currently allowed in your zoning districts, and those are not high heights, I think 3 or 4 stories. Anything higher than that has to go through the plan development process and be approved by, it has to be recommended by the Planning Commission, staff has to review it, recommended by the Planning Commission, and ultimately approved or denied by the Board of Commissioners.
So we still listed at 10 stories or 8 stories is our max, or can we now go 12 or 14 stories with the new hotels?
I'd say you can try.
Okay, but if you guys
I wouldn't
lifted
say
the
that you would
restriction, that puts us
necessarily
back
be
in court,
successful.
doesn't it?
I'm sorry?
If someone lifted the restrictions on what we just fought with in court, we just spent a year in court, didn't we, going through this with this development with the last mayor and the last community that ran the town? Okay, spent a lot of money in court to get them to lock that in, to have that height restriction, and now it's not there.
You have
So does
height
that mean that they will
restrictions.
be back in court with a new developer saying, wow, you lifted the thing, I could go this high now?
They can ask. You have height restrictions in all of the traditional or conventional zoning districts. Those height restrictions stand. If somebody wants to go higher, they have to go through a plan development process, and they have to demonstrate why they deserve that additional height.
Okay. Next question, if I may. We're talking also about impact fees. The beach community would be one of these fees that we must have because we keep the beach clean. I live on the beach, and I've noticed since in the past several months, nothing gets cleaned on the beach except the public beach. Now, they used to come down with the sand cleaner and clean the beach all the way along, so my tax dollars should be effectively doing that still. Is there a reason that we stopped doing that? And if so, with our new impact fees, will we continue to clean the beach other than just the public beach?
I can't address what's being done currently and what was done before. With regard to impact fees, if we decide to have an impact fee that addresses a quality of life or a level of service standard with regard to beach maintenance, if you want to call it that, then that's something that's possible. Again, that's going to be a policy decision that the board will make, but it's certainly going to be something that we'll be looking at in terms of a park and recreation impact fee. And so we'll just have to see.
Okay. Now, also now with the new roadways that are being put in for the new hotels, my time's up. Does that continue? Will that now impact us now? Is the developments paying for that, or is the county paying for the new turns
I'm sorry,
that are going in?
can you start over again? I got this.
Oh, sorry. For the new roadway that's being put in on Tom Causeway, okay, Tom Stewart Causeway, we have all the new turns being put in, the roadways being dug up, plants are all being ripped out, and so forth and so on. Is that now going to affect us as residents, or is the county paying for this, or are the developers paying for the new roadway to be put in? Because we still have a new marina and hotel going in just at the bridge, which is going to cause, if you put a turn into that development, you're going to stop everybody when the bridge opens every couple hours. Has there been a thought on how that affects us also in the impact?
So the Causeway is a county road, and it's the county's purview. We cooperate with the county, they cooperate with the city, but basically that's their road, and so they're responsible for maintaining it. And generally, all of those developments that you mentioned that I'm aware of have been done through a development agreement, and the negotiation of who pays for what and when it's deployed is usually quantified and spelled out in those development agreements. But the county's in the catbird seat there, and with any kind of redevelopment, there's generally lane closures and things like that.
But that, yeah, that's, common. I'm just concerned with what you said, as a resident of town, is that going to cost me money because we put in hotels to make turns in and out of each development?
Yeah, the local MPO, which I think is called Forward Pinellas, deals with those negotiations. The Metropolitan Planning Organization, they're the road people above the local DOT. And they will generally have what are called warrants. So a project will, the size of a project or the traffic it would generate, they have a calculus for that, and that generates warrants, what they call warrants. And if the warrants are high enough, then they're required to put in a turn lane or something like that. Usually the developer is going to pay for that.
Will there be a traffic light put in there to start that traffic that we know of?
Not aware.
No. Okay. All right. Thank you very much.
Sir, thank you.
Got something if you.
Okay, yes?
Just to
Commissioner.
address that particular topic, on one of the development agreements, if you read through it, it does address, I'm actually looking at one of the development agreements now, and it says any off-site roadway improvements that are needed are going to be funded by the developer. So hopefully that answers that portion. Mm-hmm.
Marcia Zuckelman, again, 845 Bay Point Drive. One question again, what was your committee started out to be? Your committee started out to do what?
Well, as a planning commission, we started looking into impact fees under the direction of Jerry
Right.
Murphy, one of our roles as commissioners. Then this is something new. I mean,
As
to
a planning
define our-
committee, besides impact fees, are you also looking at anything else?
As a planning commission, we're chartered, yes, with different things. We look at ordinances, we update ordinances, we, I don't know, we look at all different developments that are coming in, all of this, like
your
any
committee-
planning commission in a municipality.
Has your committee, by chance, reached out to realtors, developers, builders, to see how they feel about a transition of new construction being done within Madeira? Different points of views from them? I think a lot of people out there are afraid to speak and put their name on something. as realtors or as builders so has something been asked of them, maybe even anonymously, so that they can give you a true opinion?
I am a real estate broker, and I operate within the city, and,
No, I know, but there has been realtors out there that have other opinions, so I'm just wondering.
for sure. That's why we're doing this.
Okay.
Yeah, we've had plenty of real estate agents and brokers in expressing their concerns. And pretty much we're presented with a topic and we make a recommendation to the elected officials.
that's all I wanted to
And
know.
they could take our recommendation or deny it.
Okay, thank you.
And you are always welcome. As a realtor or a citizen, our meetings are always second Monday of the month. Come and talk to us. We're really very nice and we
Oh, I
listen
understand.
to
No, I just didn't know what it was.
you
that
have to say.
committee
We
did as
welcome
a
Most
you.
of
whole.
us are.
Thank you.
Sure.
And Sheriff, if I can follow up just a little bit to tell you a little bit more about the process. So this is the front end of the process. Again, we're trying to reach out for comments like we're getting tonight. Very good. What we'll do now after tonight is we'll do a study based on, well, we'll do a report actually to the commission, saying here's what we've heard, here's a path forward, and get direction on what the Board of Commissioners wants to do. Then if they do want to undertake impact fees, which is part of their strategic plan, so I'm pretty sure they will want to, we'll do a study to see just how we can quantify what the level of service is, how we can quantify the impacts, and make recommendations for then how to go forward. And after that study, there'll be public hearings and there'll be public workshops. I think we've scheduled at least 2, if not 4, AM and PM public workshops when we start having a draft ordinance to go forward so that we can get comment. So I, encourage you to reach out to your friends and your colleagues and tell them to get involved in the process. But again, this is early on. There's going to be a lot of time before anything becomes an actually adopted ordinance.
Now, I'm starting to understand what you're trying to get at here. I live on Bocasia Avenue. We have a number of street ends.
You're speaking again, if you could identify
Joe
yourself.
Jorgensen.
For the record.
Yes. We have a number of street ends, and for years I've recommended to the city that they take 1 or 2 of those street ends. I live on the water. I'm blessed to live on the water. It's beautiful. But all those homes that are on the other side of the street, not on the water, many times I see those people in those street ends, those little parks. I think they're great things, and I think that I would love to see 1 or 2 of those street ends converted into a little boat launch for the neighborhood. So people that live in that neighborhood, if they've got a kayak or a paddle board or, no parking for boats or anything. So if you live in that neighborhood, you can bring your boat over there and put it in and take your car back or your trailer back. But I think that would be a beautiful thing to have to allow the people that aren't blessed enough to live on the water but live on the beach to be able to give them access to those areas so they can get out and utilize it too. So I think that would be a service I'd like to see. Thank you.
Sure.
Are you talking about kayaks and canoes or actually a ramp for boats?
They're not big areas. They're not big areas. I don't think you're going to have big boats. I think you're looking at the people in the neighborhood that have a 20-foot little boat with a motor on it, and right now they're driving over to the city. Now, granted, it makes the city money, so maybe that's a good idea. But the people in my neighborhood, if you drive over the bridge onto Treasure Island and go down to 127th, there's a boat launch that puts you basically in Johns Pass. But, if you sit out there and you watch, you got kayaks all the time, you've got paddle boards all the time. I mean, people are utilizing and if those people in those neighborhoods could just walk down the street and drag their kayak down the street and drop it in the water, I think it'd be a wonderful service to offer.
Donna Krajik, 15316 Gulf Boulevard. You wrote down permit for service animals, so you're going to make the people in the town get a permit if they have a service animal?
I'm not.
I mean, You're
The i-
proposing to do
The
this?
idea that was
Charge.
brought up was that, and it's not a problem with the service animals so much, it was apparently a problem with pets being in the wrong place at the wrong time. And the idea then was, obviously, service animals would be exempt, but I just say it's a service animal, or I can demonstrate that it is a service
I
animal.
like that idea, that you're saying if it's a service animal, you have to prove it, okay? Then you have to add emotional dogs, or cats, or donkeys, or birds, because they're going crazy with that now, too. I'm not a fan of seeing garages, popping up to help parking. I think garages would look hideous in this town. I think parking is fine, charging people, but if you put a garage, you're taking away the view. I'm a walker, so when I walk, I don't want to see another concrete slab full of cars. I think that would look hideous. So I know you're trying to get places for these fees. Now, are these fees to offset what we have to pay in taxes?
So in the absence of impact fees, everything comes from taxes, grants, or other revenues.
Okay.
Primarily, the idea is that what's not being covered by fees is probably being covered by ad valorem taxes.
Okay, so all the stuff that you want, if you don't get it from impact fees, that means the taxpayer will be paying for it.
If development and growth occurs, it expands the pool of people utilizing the limited resources. And so to expand the resources to maintain the current level of service or quality of life, or whatever you want to call it, it costs additional resources.
Okay.
Those resources come from
So this
general
development,
fund
in
or
fact,
from impact fees.
does cost the taxpayers money. Because if there's development, that means there's more people, and more people means that you have impact fees because we have changed things. So in the long run, I guess people don't realize this, impact fees will cost us money.
I didn't follow that.
Okay, the impact fees are from the developer.
Right.
If you don't get it from the developer,
Oh,
it's gonna come from us.
in the absence of impact fees, growth will continue to stretch your current service thinner and thinner. More people, more opportunities to utilize those resources with fewer resources. So if you maintain the same standard, it's going to take additional resources. In the absence of impact fees, they come from other places, and it's usually the general fund, and the general fund is usually supported by ad valorem taxes.
Okay, when they had the developments say that their height limits are limited, I read in the paper that if they give us green space or they give us something, they can go higher. Is that the case where you're trying to get something from them so they can go higher and we get money from them for these things?
No, impact fees don't work like that. There are provisions in the plan development ordinance that if a developer uses as justification additional open space, these can be considered by the Board of Commissioners in making their determination of whether there should be additional height or additional density or anything like that.
Okay, additional height means more people means more services. So in the long run, it's going to be higher taxes.
Well, or you have the impact fees to offset that impact.
Until the people come in and move in, it's like a no-win situation. You're going to raise our taxes because
I'm not.
I know you're not. The town is, because the more you get developed, the higher our taxes are going to go. And you're going to price the person who could afford to live here now out.
Well, keeping in mind that with new development, with new units, you're generating more tax revenue as well. Right, if you're going from a place that has 3 units on it and now you have 6 and it all fits and I don't want to get into height and density and all that. If it's allowed to have 6 units and you redevelop it into 6 units, now you have 6 units generating property taxes that go into the general revenue fund to help offset the necessary services.
So what about a hotel? Hotel doesn't have units, they have people staying there.
But they do generate revenue that does generate tax money.
That revenue
Comes into
doesn't
the
go to
city.
Madeira Beach, it goes to the county and the state.
And then the
You
county.
don't get the
goes down to
the
us.
taxes that the state and the county get. So our town is going to pay for the developers to have all these people come visit. They'll pay the taxes, but we're not getting that.
Well, as a hotel, for example, if you take a vacant lot and develop a hotel on it, now you've got something that's worth substantially more than a vacant lot, and they pay ad valorem taxes on that particular redeveloped piece of property, so they're paying taxes into the general fund.
They're paying
as well.
taxes on the building, but if they have 100 people here, and we need to get more fire departments, more police, more sanitation, more water, the money still is going to come from the town because we're not allowed to get the taxes, which doesn't make sense to me, why the county gets it and the state gets it and Madeira doesn't get anything.
Sales tax is divided up. Sales tax is divided up between the state, the county, and the municipality. Property tax, we also get a portion of that. Plus, in regard to development, you can think, okay, Commissioner Wyckoff brought up about the taxes of the rooms and things, but we're hoping you have people eating in restaurants, which generates sales tax and more businesses that are operating, shopping in gift shops and stores and this kind of thing. So I'm not the Blessed Father to look at how all this development goes, but it kind
I
of
just
works.
think our town should be able to get how they charge, if you come into the hotel, they charge 13%. So why can't we charge a 1% tax on that, so make it 14%, and we get some of the taxes that they're getting to the state and the county?
I don't know if Madeira Beach does that. I know in Tampa, that Tampa City gets a tax on every hotel room and things like that.
So I think that's something that you guys should look into, that a tax on, because you're going to have a lot of people in these hotels. So a tax 1%, or even a 0.5%, a 1/4%, something to help us so the residents who live here don't have to move because they can't afford to live here.
Very good.
That's what I want to say. Thanks.
That's what's so good about this public hearing, where people are voicing their opinions.
And Madam Chair, if I may, there's also a tourism development tax, or what's commonly called a bed tax, and hotels charge that. The county collects that, and then it's distributed. Much of the money goes for things that the county's doing in terms of advertising and promotion. I believe it's also used for beach renourishment, though that doesn't seem to be an issue here. Not in Pinellas County?
It is for beach, a portion of it's for beach renourishment. Most of it is for marketing for the county, and also they pay for the stadiums and those type of things to bring the tourist in to generate that income. But that money does not come back to the cities.
For anybody that's speaking, please come to the mic, please.
Yes.
Thank you.
Bob Daniels, City Manager, Madeira Beach. Just to set the record straight, we all read newspapers, and sometimes they have to fit in their story within so many lines, so they don't tell the whole story. So I think this whole issue of the PD ordinance and the height restrictions being removed has gotten blown way out of proportion, because everything that comes under the PD ordinance, so those are height restrictions over and above what the zoning is, has to come before several bodies, as we've talked about, this body right here. It has to go to public hearings. It also comes before our commission, our Board of Commissioners, to be voted upon. So there's nothing automatic out of what's being done. I know when you read the article, because I read the same article, and unfortunately sometimes the reporters don't even have an opportunity to be here in this room. They watch it through our television and our video capabilities and so forth, so it gets a little skewed. So I appreciate the fact that all of you are here, first off, and getting this feedback, I think, is very important. The other thing I wanted to mention is all these items that Mr. Murphy had up on the screen, that's from other people giving feedback as to what they might want to look at for these impact fees. None of these items have been blessed by the town, the city or the Board of Commissioners. They're just ideas, similar to the ideas that you all are now giving us that are going to go on another list that Jerry will have. So, don't take this as being, well, these are all the ideas that we want you to know about, but these are just ideas in general. And then we fine-tune them, and ultimately, as Jerry said, our Board of Commissioners decides, okay, well, these are avenues that we want to research further, and they make sense, and these other ones, well, they might be addressed differently, like when we talk about dogs on the beach and the permits for service dogs and all that stuff. They're just quality of life issues that we have to address, but maybe they're more addressed through code enforcement techniques instead of impact fees. So, but in the essence of being totally transparent, I think it was important that, we all hear some of those ideas that came up, and maybe that'll spearhead some thought processes that you all might have, and even not tonight, but even as we go forward, if you come up with an idea, we want to hear it. We don't want to stymie any discussion or any comments, because I think all that is important. So I just wanted to take a minute to step up, and I've been listening in the back because I get more sometimes by hearing the interaction and being able to explain some of the items that come up. But please keep up with the ideas and keep asking those questions. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. City Manager, for your detailed description of what we're doing. Appreciate it. Anybody else? We welcome any more comments. Welcome.
Thank you. Actually, getting ready to sign. My name's Laura Britt. I'm on North Bay Shore. Getting ready to sign for a house that was being built. One of the things that drew me to Madeira is the fact that we have vacationed in Indian Shores and everything, and I love this little town. And I don't know who you are. You came up and unannounced and you don't have a placard, so I'm taking notes.
Yes.
Sorry I was late. I had a water leak on 154th.
He's our chairman. I'm just filling in.
Okay.
I got stuck at a water leak. I'm sorry I was late.
That's okay. I'm all about transparency, okay? And I'm from Maryland, so we don't hold anything.
They just bring me up here to make the commission look a little better, that's all.
There you go. So part of the thing that, I was reading about the impact fees. I know how important they are and where they are, as far as development and everything goes. One of the things I don't like to see, and as I've come here and I've spoken with my neighbors, and they're talking about all this development that's happening and the height restrictions and everything, is to be able to preserve what Madeira Beach is. And that's what drew me here, and which is why I bought the house that I did. So I love the communication. I would like to see all those slides. Do we have access to those so we can do it? I'm going to be researching, being involved, get used to seeing me, because I want to invest in this community. So I will have tons of questions for everybody. Sorry. So yeah, I understand the importance of the impact fees. And I also know the importance of making sure that we're doing what we're doing in our community to make sure that all these folks out here that have been here forever, that come down 9 months out of the year, are also have their interests protected. So I just wanted to make a comment. Thank you so much, but I do want to get as much information as possible.
Well, welcome. And
Thank you.
you could always put an application in if you would like to join. I think we had a vacancy. I don't know if we filled it yet.
No, we haven't.
Yeah, I might do that.
Thank you. And that's a very good point. We all live in Madeira Beach because we love Madeira Beach. What is it? I'm a new one too, and we moved here because I love Madeira compared to every other community. Somebody else? Are we done? Any more? Last call. Can you come up and address us at the podium, please? And if you we're just recording this, state your name for the record.
316 Gulf Boulevard. I'm a walker. So when I walk, I used to walk on 150th, but now it's gone. And they used to have a little path with the little orange things for me to walk. It's gone. So now you have to walk on Gulf Boulevard, and you have to walk in the street, and it's dangerous, and the cars are coming right near you. And the 2-car lanes, they don't want people there, so I think you need to address that. And then when will we get our 150th back?
That is not a question for us.
I know, that's why I figured I figured maybe you might know.
Well, we've got a great resource guide right in the audience.
And then are they going to replace the palm trees? Because, or is it just going to be all concrete we see?
Don't run away.
Oh, okay.
I'm just borrowing your mic because they want to hear what I have to say too.
Okay.
I can't answer the question on the palm trees, but I can check into it and I can let you know. I know we've asked for the landscaping plan because all that was decided before I came on board. So
Okay.
I'm new here as well.
Okay.
So, but as to your question as to when, we're hoping before we get into the Christmas holidays that they will be done. So we appreciate your patience. We had an opportunity where we could force them to open everything up at night, and then they'd spend another hour when they started in the morning. And to me, I just wanted to get the project done before.
You don't need it at night.
Right. I wanted to get the project done as quickly as we could. And the Madeira Way project should be done the first week in December, roughly.
Okay.
And
They definitely need to address a walkway for pedestrians.
there will be a walkway across 100.
No, but I mean now. Because
Okay.
I go over the bridge.
Okay.
So it's like, I'm on this side of the road, and unless I cross, which is like, I don't want to even go on 4 lanes of traffic, there's no walkway for me to get on my side of the bridge.
Okay.
With the cone, they used to have the orange things and a net, and I had a walkway. But
A
there's
safety
no,
path.
Yeah, there's no walkway.
Okay. Okay. I will check into it.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. City Manager, for that. Last call. Okay, I'd like to close this time period for public comment, and thank you all very much for coming and voicing your interest. And now let's proceed, and thank you for all of your information. Jerry knows so much. Mr. Murphy's a real asset to the city here. Look at him blush over there. Okay, let's move on, please, to old business. Do we have any commissioners that have anything?
No. No.
I just wanted to bring up one point about what we've been discussing, and Mr. Jorgensen brought up a great point about the city and street end parks. Maybe a program for business or individuals to adopt a park. You see sometimes we have adopt a highway or something like that. I know there are some businesses that are very well rooted in the community, but they may not be residents. The business owners may not be residents, and that'd be one way for them to maybe give something back. And whether, not sure they're going to front the money for a boat ramp, but I mean, at least landscaping and installation of benches or things like that, just a general concept to throw out a, adopt a park type thing.
Okay, that's something.
I'd just like to say that I support that 100%. I own a business here, I own an office building here, and I own 2 houses here. So I support that 100%, and if I can pick out the street end, I'll be more than happy to help. There you go.
Okay, thank
Needs
you,
to be
sir.
on my side, though. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Okay, I just have one comment, Jerry. We're looking at marinas like we looked on the liveaboards. Will that be coming up in the future? Can we put that on a planning commission to look at that ordinance we presently have? Thank you, because we can proceed on that for safeguarding our marinas and people doing the right things. Okay. Any other discussion, guys? Okay. Our next meeting will be December 9th, 6th?
I believe that is correct. Yes.
Okay?
Yes.
And Madam Chair, before you adjourn, does the commission have any questions for me? Are we pretty clear on where we're headed?
Yeah, just keep us in line.
Oh, it's your chore.
It's like herding cats. Okay. And, okay. Happy Thanksgiving. We're adjourned.
Thank you.